Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Seth Joyner Show. Happy Tuesday to you all, and we are getting closer and closer and closer to the beginning of the 2021 season. I know that a lot of you guys are disappointed by what you saw last week. So am I, absolutely. We're going to talk about it today. Today is Talk to 'em Tuesday. We are going to take your questions, take your comments, take your concerns, take your likes, your dislikes, and we're going to talk about them right here on this show for the next hour. Let's start off with how much hope we had for the 2021 season, after the Steelers game. The offense looked good. The defense looked good. Everyone looked like they were in a good place. And then all of a sudden, the New England Patriots rolled into town. New England Patriots rolled into town for joint practice sessions, and all we heard was how good the offense looked, and how they were beating up on the New England Patriots. And they won the first practice. They won the second practice. Jalen Hurts this. I mean, that's all we heard leading up to the first preseason game was basically the Philadelphia Eagles in practice was handling the New England Patriots. Okay. So then we get to Thursday's preseason game. And, everyone's waiting with bated breath. Everyone's waiting in great anticipation for more of what we saw in the first half last week. And what do we get? We got Jalen Hurts dancing around in pregame. Looked healthy to me. Didn't look like his stomach was bothering him to me. They go back in, and the kickoff happens. We get the ball, and out trots Joe Flacco. Now, Nick Sirianni said that Jalen Hurts wasn't feeling well earlier in the day. He didn't look that way during warmups. And then they made a decision to pull him from the lineup that night, last Thursday night, and send him to the hospital because he was having stomach pains. Now, if it was serious, it was serious. But all of this sounds a little suspect to me. I don't know how you guys feel about it. I think that because Jalen Hurts didn't play, that precipitated the offensive line not playing. The offensive line not playing precipitated the defensive starters not playing. And we had to suffer through one of the worst outings of Philadelphia Eagles football that I can remember in a long time. Listen, I see some of you guys in your comments. I'm going to finish up my little monologue here, and then I'm going to jump into your questions. But you guys let me know what you think. I'm a little concerned for Nick Sirianni. Listen, I like Nick. I think Nick has the potential to be a good coach, maybe even a great coach. I like what he's brought in from the standpoint of teachers as coaches. You can see the improvement at the wide receiver position. You can see the improvement bit by bit of Jalen Hurts. You can see the improvement with defensive backs on the defensive side of the ball and the linebackers and everyone being connected. So the competition, the fundamental work, the technique work, the improved skills work, all of those things look great to me. But the thing I'm worried about the most is potentially the meddling of one Howie Roseman and one Jeffrey Lurie. What we witnessed the other night, what we witnessed Thursday night smells like Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman. That's what it sounds like. And then you trot out Nick Sirianni to have to face the music after the game, to have to take the questions after the game. Now, if, the great and wonderful Oz are playing and pulling the levers behind the scenes, and what we're watching is a coach being thrust into the same situation that Doug Peterson was thrust into, then this is going to be a problem, and it's going to be a problem for a while. Because at some point in time, the coach of Nick Sirianni is going to be like, hey, you hired me to be the coach. Step back and let me coach. Stop telling me what to do. Stop telling me what to run. All of these things are concerning for me. Then you also hear Nick Sirianni talk about, how the running game is going to be a big part of what they do on the offensive side of the ball. Through 2 preseason games, they're averaging 15 running plays per game. 15. That is literally 2.5 carries per quarter. Okay. Now, some of you guys say, yes, Seth, you've been, banging that cymbal and that gong for years, and it's not going to change. This is the new NFL. Nick Sirianni said, hey, you know what? The running game is going to be a big part of what we do. We haven't seen it. We haven't seen a commitment to it. That takes my mind back to the article that came out that talked about Doug Peterson and his every Tuesday meeting with Jeffrey Lurie, where Jeffrey would grill him on, oh, why didn't you run this play? And why'd you make this decision? And why'd you run so much in this game? And why'd you throw so much in this game? Let's not forget that months ago, when the Eagles began their search for a new head coach, Jeffrey Lurie's main mandate was, we have to have an elite level, high-powered offense in order to be successful in the NFL, the way the NFL is constructed today. Okay? What does that tell you? That tells you that Jeffrey Lurie wants to air the ball out. He wants to throw the ball a la Al Davis, okay? And that mandate is filtering right down to Nick Sirianni, and I'm afraid that it's hampering his ability to run his football team the way that he wants to. Now, if I'm wrong, then I'll apologize, okay? But I kind of smell a little bit of a rat here, and I kind of feel like all of these things are in play, and it's going to make it that much more difficult for this football team to be successful, for Nick Sirianni to be successful, if what I'm assuming is true is really true, okay? Listen, if Howie and Jeffrey want to coach the team, then coach the team. Don't hire, a head coach to come in and run it if you're going to micromanage everything that the head coach does. If you're going to make all the decisions for the football team from a roster standpoint, when the defensive coordinator knows what he needs, when the offensive coordinator knows what he needs, and in conjunction with those two guys, they understand what's necessary in the special teams realm, okay? I just don't like what I'm seeing. And I started off so optimistic about what I saw against the Steelers in the first half. We got Quez Watkins making splash plays. We got Jalen Hurts with the rifle, the bullet to Dallas Goedert, throwing the ball to Zach Ertz, completing pass plays to, the running backs in the flat, taking a shot downfield from the end zone. All of these good things that you built on in week 1 and got fans excited about, you pretty much flushed it down the toilet in week 1, and you trotted your rookie head coach to come out in front of the media to face the music. If this is the case, and if this is what's happening with the Philadelphia Eagles brass, in 3 or 4 years, we're going to be right back in this scenario all over again. Because just like Doug Peterson got tired of it, Nick Sirianni at some point will get tired of it and realize that, hey, I can go somewhere where a head coach won't micromanage every little thing that I do. He'll allow me to coach. He'll allow me to hire my coaches. He'll allow me to run the football team as I see fit, to fit and build a culture the way that I see fit. I mean, I'm just bouncing stuff off of you guys as we continue the show. This is the Seth Joyner Show, and coming up with topics for you guys to ask questions as we, go through this hour show. I could be as wrong as two left shoes, but I got a hunch that I'm not. And a lot of that will be either proven or disproven come Friday night. If Jalen Hurts and that offense doesn't play at least a quarter, if the defense in totality of who you anticipate to be the starters don't play at least a quarter on Friday night, there's a problem. Okay? Jalen Hurts has played all the 10 plays, and I don't care what you do in practice. Practice is, yes, it's setting you up for what you do in the game. But the speed and the different looks and the physicality, you cannot duplicate that when you consider practice opposed to games. How the tempo changes from preseason to regular season. There's going to be a 15 to 25% jump in intensity and speed from the preseason to the regular season. You think you're just going to snap your finger and all of these things are going to fall into place? You think that you're just going to come out and run the football when you haven't tried to establish and worked on the physical side of it in a game the entire preseason? You just sprinkle 15 runs in a 60-minute game. And you expect for week one, come out against the Atlanta Falcons and your running game is just going to automatically, magically work, or you're going to come out and throw the ball 60 times in week one because that's your mandate. I mean, all of these things really, has got the fan base in Philly, got me scratching my head. I thought we were moving in the right direction. You guys heard me say, and I'll still maintain it because at the end of the day, it all boils down to the players making plays and players making the best out of the worst situations that coaches can put them in. Listen, coaches don't always get it right. Sometimes it's up to the players to take a bad call and make it work. Just as long as everybody's on the same page, as long as the defense is on the same page, as long as the offense is on the same page, as long as the special teams group is on the same page, then sometimes a bad call by a coordinator can be masked by players going out making it happen, okay? So can the players take the bull by the horns and say, even though the situation is how it is, when the play call comes in, we're going to execute it to the best of our ability, and we're going to make it work. That's possible. That's possible, but it sure does help, when players, coaches, and everybody's on the same page. And I'm not saying that they aren't. I'm not saying that the organization, is not. I just didn't like the optics of what we saw last Thursday night. I didn't like the feel of it. I didn't like the conversation that transpired from players after the game. Devontae Smith says, hey, I didn't even know Jalen Hurts wasn't playing until I stepped in the huddle and looked up and saw Joe Flacco. Don't you think that your number one wide receiver would know that the starting quarterback's not playing in a game? When you hear the conversation from Lane Johnson, and Lane Johnson is crafty. I love Lane Johnson. I love listening to him in the media, and I know the Eagles don't like to hear him. But when you dissect and read between the lines of what it is that you're hearing from Lane Johnson, he pretty much called what transpired last Thursday night BS, okay? He pretty much said that in the most covert way he could without getting in trouble, okay? When you got guys on the defensive side of the ball, hey, we wanted to play. Hey, we wanted to play. Well, listen, I get it. There comes a point in time where you want to rest your players. You got 15 days in between the last preseason game and the first regular season game to get your players rest up and ready to go, okay? You talk about, we played what was equivalent to 2 games in practice against the Patriots. Impossible. You can never work that hard to get there. You don't tackle in practice no more. You don't run wind sprints after practice anymore. Practices aren't physical, okay? So there's no way you can tell me that you got 2 games worth of practice in last week's practices with the Patriots. I'm not buying that. Plus, the Patriots started all their guys. They played all their guys the first half. They shellacked our number 2s in the first half, no problem. So why couldn't our players play if Bill Belichick had the wherewithal to play all of his players? And then we roll into week 3, the last week of preseason, and we're hearing all of this nonsense about there's a possibility that Jalen Hurts might not play this coming week. There's a possibility that starting offensive line might not play this upcoming week. What are you protecting? You cannot protect players from injuries. It's part of the game. You create this mindset. Oh, you might get hurt. When you start thinking that way and you start playing that way, that's when you get hurt. The object is to go all out with a total disregard for your body. And more times than not, when you play that way, injury has a way of evading you. You want to see guys get hurt? Lackadaisical, standing around a pile, not really hustling, trying to protect themselves from not getting hurt. That's how you get hurt. All right? Hey, listen, I'm stepping off my soapbox right now. You listen to the Seth Joyner Show. We're going to back this thing all the way back up, and I'm going to go through some questions here from you guys, and, we're just going to burn through them until the show ends. Jeanette says, all I know is I'm not yelling for Flacco to come in for Hurts if Hurts has a bad game. Well, let me tell you something, Jeanette. Joe Flacco's a veteran. I think that's one of the reasons he was brought here. But if Joe Flacco has to play because Jalen Hurts is hurt or he's ineffective, then the Eagles will be in more trouble than they were if Jalen Hurts was actually out on the field. They're going to have more problems if Jalen Hurts gets hurt than they could have ever imagined. Let's evaluate what Joe Flacco is. When Joe Flacco left the Baltimore Ravens, he was already cooked. Already. Let's just be real about it. He was already cooked. Okay? So you bring him in pretty much to be a veteran mentor to Jalen Hurts. He played well in week 1. Okay? The majority of his runs, Quez Watkins turns a little bubble screen into a 79-yard touchdown pass. And, some people in Philadelphia wants to believe that we've got a quarterback controversy. No, we don't. Because if you're really watching the game, the one thing that you'll realize is that, listen, I don't want Jalen Hurts to be a guy, at the first threat of pressure, he's just going to take off and start running. I don't want to see that out of Jalen Hurts. What I want to see Jalen Hurts do is be able to manipulate the pocket when pressure is around him and understand when you're in man and when you're in zone, you're going to scramble vertically in man because the only guy that sees you is that free safety that's standing back there 30 yards off the ball. Everybody else has got that back turn in man-to-man coverage. So you're going to pick up 15, 20 yards before the defense a lot of times can even react to you. He's going to scramble horizontally and try to buy time in the pocket when they're in zone because the defense is at their landmarks. They got their eyes on the quarterback waiting to break wherever it is that he throws. So as he begins to move, people leave their zones to come up and tackle him. When he begins to scramble vertically, guys lose the man in their zone. So now you can adjust routes, okay? Guys who are deep, they can come back. Guys that are short, they can turn it up and take it deep. All of these things, you can make this happen. Problem is, Joe Flacco doesn't give you the ability to do that, okay? When he's under pressure, he begins to panic. He starts to pat the ball. The game speeds up. His feet get happy, okay? He doesn't really manipulate the pocket that well either. Like I said, you don't have to be a running quarterback, but you certainly got to know how to manipulate the pocket like Tom Brady and like Aaron Rodgers does. The only time you see Aaron Rodgers run is when he has to. He's good at manipulating the pocket. He feels the pressure. He'll step up in the pocket and step up in the gap. He feels the pressure up the middle. He realizes he's got a guy coming to him. He'll step out away from it with his eyes down the field. Joe Flacco doesn't do that. The minute that the play breaks down, the minute that he faces pressure, the minute that they come with a blitzer and the protection breaks down, he becomes a liability because he's either going to throw the ball to the other team, he's going to panic and do something to put you in a bad situation. That's my opinion of Joe Flacco. That's what I see when I watch him play. Now, can he be effective if you give him a great running game, you give him a line who can block and give him all day to make decisions? Absolutely. Because he understands coverages, he understands blitzes, he understands all of those things. But when things break down, he doesn't have the ability to manipulate the pocket or get out of the pocket and get what the defense is actually offering. And that's, the ability to get a first down and move the chains. I don't see it. So to your point, Jeanette, I agree with you. If he's got to play, we got some serious problems. Let's see what else we got here. Dre wants to know what I think about, the linebackers that we have. Listen, I love Alex Singleton. Dude plays with his hair on fire, literally. I haven't seen enough of Eric Wilson to really make a judgment. I know that he is more well known for his ability to rush the passer and in pass coverage. People have talked about, he's a running game liability. And certainly Philadelphia Eagles gave up 270 yards worth of rushing last week. I'm not saying that, it was his fault because I don't believe that he played, but that's a big deal. If he can't read, the run game and understand where to fit. Davion Taylor was having a good camp. He came up lame. We don't know where he is. We don't know how soon he's, back in the fold. TJ Edwards, see a lot of good things from him. I'm not so sure, he's starter material. I believe that, in the run game, he's extremely effective, so much more effective than he is in the pass game. I think in the pass game, he's a passing game liability. And if I'm an offensive coordinator and he's starting, well, I'm orchestrating my offense to take advantage of that mismatch because it will be a mismatch. Whether he's got to cover a running back out of the backfield, whether he's got to cover a tight end man to man, even in zone sometimes, he's a liability. So, who else is there? You got Sean Bradley. I had high hopes for him, but when I watch him play, he looks completely lost in the run game. Offensive linemen are up on him at 4 yards before he can even decipher what the play is. I don't know whether the linebacker coach is teaching these guys to read blocking schemes or whether, they're under the old coaching staff where they're reading what's going on in the backfield. The problem with reading what's going on in the backfield, while you're standing there trying to decipher and you don't understand what it is, offensive linemen are climbing on you at 4 or 5 yards, creating running lanes. That's a problem. That's why, when you're a linebacker and you're lined up over an uncovered lineman, that guy's the guy that tells you what the play is, okay? If it's a run play, he's either pulling or he's coming out to get you or he's double teaming, the defensive tackle. If it's a pass play, he pops up in pass pro right now, so the linebacker knows what the play is right now. The only key breaker is, hey, what do? They pop up, they show pass, and then they run the delayed draw, okay? And that one you just have to work through and kind of figure out, in your film study, what that looks like. But when I look at these linebackers sometimes, particularly Sean Bradley and Eric Wilson, I don't see them having the ability to read and decipher what's going on in front of them enough, to be effective in a running game. And that's going to put added pressure on the linemen, Fletcher Cox, Milton Williams, Javon Hargrave. Those guys in the interior, those guys are going to have to shut down the run. They're going to have to get off of double teams. They're going to have to get off of trap blocks and things of that nature. They're going to have to get off the stretch plays and the cut on the backside if the linebackers aren't going to read and be able to get up and get off blocks and make plays. If teams think that they can run the ball, then they will use that as a weapon against, the Philadelphia Eagles defense. And a lot of the run game falls on the linebackers to be able to stop it. All right. Let's see what else we got. I'm gonna give Snapback Jug, a little play here. He says, I really think we need Watson. He's ready to win. Now Hurts is average third string. I don't know where you come up with that. What have you seen from Hurts that makes you believe that he's a third string quarterback? The other thing, I keep hearing this nonsense about Watson. First of all, we don't know what his legal situation is. That's the first thing. The second thing is, what is it that the Houston Texans are going to want for him? Okay. If you don't believe that they are looking at those possible 3 first-round draft picks as compensation, you're out of your mind. At the other end of the spectrum, I don't believe any player, I'm talking any player, is worth 3 first-round draft picks and the cap hit that the Eagles are going to take to bring Watson in. Okay? We just shipped Wentz out. His guaranteed money, the Eagles are going to have to pay it, so he's still on the books way beyond this year. Okay? And now we got a quarterback who's in his rookie deal. How did we win the Super Bowl the first time? With a quarterback who is still on his rookie deal. Now, I'm not saying that Watson isn't a bad boy. He is. For him to do what he did last year with all the weapons that they took away from him, he's a top 5 quarterback. There's no doubt about it. But I don't think the Eagles mortgage that much draft capital in the future to go out and get Deshaun Watson when you're going to have 3 first-round draft picks next year and $70+ million in cap space to improve your young football team. I just don't think it's worth it. You ride Jalen Hurts out, you find out whether he's the guy this year, and then if you need to go get a quarterback next year, you got assets to either do it in the draft or assets to trade. Deshaun Watson is still going to be there next year. And the Houston Texans aren't going to want him any more next year than they want him right now. Okay? That's my take on the whole Deshaun Watson thing. Where you come up with him being a third string quarterback, I don't know, after only 10 plays in the preseason, how you make that assessment. That's just my opinion. All right? Let's keep rolling. Okay. Okay. Adam Exports. He said, Jalen said he had stomach pains all day in his interview today. He said he probably would have played if it was a regular season game. Well, stomach pains. That's what we're talking about? Stomach pains? To take a quote out of Allen Iverson, stomach pains? Come on, man. Come on. Okay? If you got stomach pains, if you're not about to crap your pants, then you get out there and you play. All right? Stomach pains. You got a case of the poops. Get out there and play. It is what it is. All right? I don't know what's going on in the game of football that the game has become so soft. And you create excuses for players to be soft in situations like this. If he wanted to play, let him play. Okay? If it gets worse, you can always take him out of the game and then send him to the hospital. But in my day, you played with pain. You played with injury. You played with all of these different things. And I get it's a different day. You guys want to call me a dinosaur, some of you guys, okay? But whatever happened to mental toughness and physical toughness? How do you develop mental and physical toughness? It's by going through some things. You know, it's by Jalen Hurts going out and playing with stomach pains. Okay? If it's the regular season and he said he probably would have played, then he had the option to play in the preseason when he needed the reps, given that he only had 8 game time reps under this coaching staff, under this coaching regime, under this new system. He's only had 10 total plays. And you hold him out because he has stomach pains. I'm going to move on before I say something even worse. All right. Christopher says he thinks that this coaching staff is way over his head. I can see how some fans probably feel that way, but at the end of the day, be careful. Give this coaching staff a chance. We're talking preseason. We're not talking the regular season. Let's give them a chance to see what they can do. That's the first thing. The second thing is always be cognizant of the fact that the great and wonderful Oz is behind the curtain sometimes, and they're pulling levers and they're pulling chains and they're doing things, okay, that this young coaching staff doesn't have any control over. Consider that. Consider that to be the case, okay? I told you guys a long time ago, Howie Roseman, and this is not a knock on Nick Sirianni because I like him, but when you hire a new head coach and you hire him for the first time, his first job of being a head coach, don't you have to kind of wonder a little bit? Is there still some insecurity? Is Howie still a little scarred from what Chip Kelly did to him? That he's afraid to hire an Eric Bieniemy? That he's afraid to hire, some of these coaches that are real men that come in and say, I'm going to do the coaching and you're going to do, we're going to collaborate on the draft and free agents, and you're going to do the cap and you're going to wheel and deal for draft picks. Okay. Howie's not going to ever allow himself to be put in the position that Chip Kelly put him in when he came in the second year. He went to Jeffrey Lurie and said, hey, I need total control. He's not going to allow himself to be in that situation again. I think that's why you see the hires like Doug Peterson, first-time head coach, Nick Sirianni, first-time head coach, because he can control those guys to a certain extent. You're not controlling, some of these other coaches, who have won Super Bowls in other places, that have strong personalities, and frankly, they're just not going to deal with, being a head coach under those auspices. Okay, so I'm going to give this coaching staff the benefit of the doubt. I just think that we owe them that. Okay, before we say, oh, they're in over their head. Jay Koch, do you think this team would be sloppy from not getting reps, or is this being predicated on being focused come week one? Well, I mean, listen, they're pointing at week one, but if you don't do the reps through preseason games and training camp, then your preseason games and your training camp kind of gets pushed into the regular season. Listen, we saw it with Doug Peterson. We saw it in, the first 4 games the year after the Super Bowl. They didn't do anything. It was a cakewalk. Everybody was still in Super Bowl glory. And they started off 1-4 or 2-3, something crazy, 2-5, something crazy like that. And they rushed Carson Wentz back because they felt as though he was the missing piece. You can't take any shortcuts. If the team doesn't get enough reps, in my opinion, if Jalen Hurts doesn't play Friday night, the offensive line doesn't play Friday night, if they don't come out and establish a running game on Friday night to begin with, okay, and Jalen Hurts doesn't play at least the first quarter through the first half, they're going to be sloppy week one. They're going to be sloppy. Now, the Atlanta Falcons are a game that they can and should win, in my opinion. But, hey, listen, the NFL, there are no cans and shoulds. You're going to show up on Sunday, September 12th, and there's going to be a game to be played. And you better either prove it that you're going to win this game, or you're going to prove that you've lost it. And then you run into the buzzsaw over the next 3 weeks, Kansas City, a healthy San Francisco. I believe I want to say week 4, and I could be wrong. Dallas Cowboys on Monday Night Football in Dallas. Okay, that kind of buzzsaw could easily have the Eagles 0-4 right out the gate, while they're trying to figure out, how to get beyond the preseason and get themselves in the regular season mode. All right, let's see. Mr. O2, linebackers weren't filling the gaps. They waited to get blocks. Well, I just talked about that a little while ago. A lot of that is being able to decipher what's going on in front of you and anticipation. Now, I get it. You're not breaking down game film and getting ready for preseason the way you would the regular season. But the problem is, if your eyes aren't looking in the right place, then you're not reading the play properly, which means you're going to be late. And when you're late, the offensive linemen, tight ends, and running backs that are coming to block you, they have an advantage. Instead of you taking on the play at the line of scrimmage and them having to breach the line of scrimmage to get yards, contact is being made 3, 4, 5 yards deep on the other side of the line of scrimmage by the blockers on the offense. That means that, the running back has already got 4 or 5 yards at contact. So the linebackers have got to do a better job of that. The coaches got to coach them up. They got to playing defense is so about your eyes. The most difficult thing is figuring out, okay, the defense is called, what I haven't run, what's my run responsibility, what's my pass responsibility, and then listening for the check if there's a check because there's a shift or a motion or whatever it is. Okay, and then you have to go through that mental process all over again in like 5 seconds. What do I have on run? What do I have on pass? Because a shifted front changes your responsibility as a linebacker. A checked coverage will change your responsibility as a linebacker. And then I'm focusing my eyes on that player, be it a guard because he's uncovered. So my vision is going to the guard, to the quarterback, to the running back. Okay, that's the natural, process of how I decipher things with my eyes. Okay, if I'm lined up over a tackle, in my peripheral, I'm seeing the quarterback, but my main focus is on the tackle. If I'm lined up on the line of scrimmage on the tight end, I see the tight end, but I'm also seeing what's going on because the tight end blocks down. If he blocks down, then my vision's got to go down the line for a puller. Okay? But when your eyes are set in the backfield and you're looking at the quarterback and you're looking at the running back, those are two of the greatest liars on the defensive side of the ball because they're going to reverse pivot. They're going to run counters to get you step one way, get you as a linebacker to step one way, and if they can do, and they're coming back the other way, they're creating blocking angles. So you got to be able to decipher the blocking schemes that are in front of you that tells you what these plays are. And we're not seeing that from the linebackers right now. Okay. Let's see. Manny says, I'm not concerned. I think Sirianni is running a vanilla offense. The Hurts situation just disrupted the team's ability to play that day for whatever reason. I feel good about what we'll be able to do. Okay. Hey, listen, I hold the same optimism, Manny. You can call it a vanilla offense, but I still haven't seen them even try to establish their run game. I realize they got an RPO package. They got, you got your package where, you bring Gainwell in on first down that allows you to move him, split him out like, a wide receiver and man-to-man coverage, create mismatches. You got all of these things that we probably yet to see. You got your zone plays. I mean, all of these things are part of their offense, and they're trying not to show it. That's fine, okay? But you mean to tell me you can't run a simple, quarterback under center, 21 handoff, toss play, a counter play? I mean, you got to start doing this. You can talk about, and what does that do? That allows your offensive linemen to play physical. Right now, 2.5 running plays every quarter. What are you getting? Your offensive linemen, for all intents and purposes, are playing in defensive mode all the time. When you're running the ball, you're being physical. It allows you to attack. It allows you to maul some people so that when you do want to pass it, they got to respect the fact that you may run it off a play action pass, they got to honor that before they just tee off on you. The Hurts situation, listen, it is what it is. I don't think anybody will ever know exactly what transpired and what the issues are and what the issues will continue, were that night. We're not going to get the truth, in my opinion. And if that is the truth, then so be it. But it was just such a disappointment from one week to the next in what you saw in the first half of the Steelers game to what we saw, in the Patriots game. All right. Let's see. Ron K says, I seem to remember them walk Avery up over the center. So there were 5 guys up on the line. Were they doing any other interesting things on defense? Hey, listen, basically what they're running is a 4-3 defense with a Sam Backer, and they're using him like a rover, like a wild card player, a bandit. They can line him up wherever they want to. We saw it in the first game with Osman. They did some of the same stuff. It's interesting to see because it allows them to do a couple of different things. They kicked Brandon Graham down inside over the guard, which allows you to basically run an eagle front where you cover up the 3 interior guys with your 2 tackles and Brandon Graham, and then Avery or Osman lines up at a defensive end position. So now you got, a 5-man rush. It kind of takes away from your ability to be super, super effective in the pass game, because if you got 5 guys rushing, that means you lose a guy in coverage behind you. But yeah, I saw some of the same things where they line Avery up in the A gap. They line him up in the B gap. He's the type of pass rushing linebacker / defensive end / edge rusher. You can drop him down in the box and run games with him, with the tackles. I like to see it. You can't live in it, but I like to see it because, what it does is once you drop that extra guy in the box like that, the center has to respect the fact that guy is showing right there over the center. Whether you bring him or not, the center has to honor the fact that he's there. What does that do? That frees up Fletcher Cox. So when you see some of that stuff, understand some of those things, in my opinion, are orchestrated and done so that Fletcher Cox doesn't have 600-pound man laying on him play after play after play. Now, Javon Hargrave's got to step up. Milton Williams has to step up. All of these guys have to contribute. But Fletcher Cox is the highest paid player on this football team right now, per average, okay? He is the best defensive player based upon what you're paying him in salary. You've got to figure out a way as a coaching staff to free him up where he's not getting double teamed all the time. And some of this 5-man line stuff, in my opinion, is an attempt to free him up and free everybody up where you got man one-on-one blocking across the board. Somebody's got to win. BG's got to win. Fletcher's got to win. Hargrave's got to win. Sweat's got to win when he's in there. Barnett's got to win when he's in there. Whoever's in there, when you're in those man-to-man man-on-man situations in some of these passing situations, guys have just got to win. You can't have a stalemate when every guy across the board is getting man-to-man blocking. All right? Let's see what else we got here. I'm getting down into some of you guys' comments about Howie. Dan Green. Dan Green says Sirianni should tell Howie to pound sand. What's he going to do? Fire him? If yes, Howie will look like a vindictive villain. Hey, listen. The one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to piss off your boss. For all intents and purposes, Howie is Nick Sirianni's boss. You're right. I think that, listen, let me say this. I don't believe for 1 second that Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman fired Doug Peterson. I think, to your point, Doug Peterson told them to go pound sand because he had enough of the meddling and enough of the nonsense that was going on, and not allowing him to have his own coaches and not allowing him to coach the team the way he wanted to coach it, and being questioned and micromanaged across the board. Doug was like, the heck with it. I got another year or two left on my contract. I'll go home and collect the check and wait for another opportunity to present itself that's better than this. Okay. At some point in time, Dan, Nick Sirianni, any coach who has a plan, a process, and a belief and culture about how he wants to build his team is going to feel this way, And if it's true that Jeffrey and Howie are micromanaging everything that's going on, it's just a matter of time before he gets tired of being micromanaged. And you might be right, but right now, he's trying to build his resume as a head coach in the NFL. He's got to have success. Maybe not to the level of Doug Peterson. We would love to see that, but maybe not to that level. But he's got to have success that allows him to, if he does tell him to go kick sand, that he can move on to another organization and have the opportunity. Because if that is what happens, listen, teams around the league are going to see it. I think the rumblings are already beginning. They already see and believe that there's some stuff that's going on behind the scenes where coaches are being, micromanaged. And I think a lot of these coaches that will have an opportunity to interview for the Eagles job if it opens back up will decline the interview because they're not going to come here under the auspices of what's going on if it's true. You understand what I'm saying? All right. Let's see what else we got in the last 12 minutes here. Christopher says Lurie is another Al Davis and Jerry Jones. Well, listen. I use Al Davis, as an analogy, to potentially what's going on. Nobody knows for sure. The thing about Al Davis and Jerry Jones, they were in your face. Okay, they weren't trying to hide behind the scenes. Al wanted you to know it was his team, and we were doing things his way. Jerry Jones ran Jimmy Johnson off after 2 Super Bowls back to back, I believe it was, because he wanted everybody to know that it's his team and we're doing things his way. Okay, so right now we really don't know, to be honest with you, what's going on behind the scenes because we haven't seen enough of it. We hear rumblings of it. We hear little bits and pieces about what's potentially going on behind the scenes, but no one really knows for sure. But when you have situations like last week, you begin to believe that, where there's smoke, there's certainly a little bit of fire. All right. Anthony says, I think the big reason Sirianni was hired and Deuce wasn't is because Sirianni will let Howie and Jeffrey run the team. Do you agree? Well, I think Deuce was definitely one of those strong-willed guys. Listen, Deuce gave him blood, sweat, and tears on the field. He gave him blood, sweat, and tears as a coach. Coaching staffs came, coaching staffs left. Deuce was loyal to them by staying. They even blocked him from making a lateral move at other teams in the past. And then you have an opportunity to make this guy who was part of your organization for years as a player and a part of your organization for many, many, many years as a coach, and you look past him and give the job to a guy who's never been the head coach before, and you wonder why, a lot of people wonder why Deuce left. He had to leave. He didn't have any other choice, So I don't know. I don't know if Nick and Howie are running the team. I don't know, what the situation was, that why the decision for Nick Sirianni was made. I know why Deuce left, because Deuce was sick and tired of being, passed over and looked past after all his years of loyalty and service to the organization. All right. Let's see what else we have. Manny again, he says, if we can stay healthy, the Eagles will be must-see TV this year. Trust me. Listen, I don't know if you're having some banter back and forth with other viewers and listeners, but I kind of believe, the same thing after, the first preseason game. And to a certain extent, if they can figure out a way to address some of the issues, between this last preseason game and the 15 days in between the first regular season game, I'm still hopeful. I'm not going to be upset about Joe Flacco and the second and third team offense out on the field last week, and the defense, with third team backups last week that got destroyed by the starting unit of the New England Patriots and didn't put any points up and gave away 35 points. As a matter of fact, the Eagles haven't scored 0 points in the last 6 quarters, but they've given up 52 points in the last 6 quarters. A lot of that has to go and can be placed on the fact that we're playing against teams who have been able to secure better third and fourth team talent than we were able to secure for OTAs, training camp, and the preseason. Their backups to the backups to the backups to the backups are better than ours. And that's why they're getting their asses handed to them every single week, and why we've scored 0 points, in the last 6 quarters, and why the opponents have scored 52 points in the last 6 quarters. But I still believe that if the offensive line can stay healthy, if we can be balanced, run the pass, and the defense, can be middle of the pack, that the Eagles aren't going to be as bad as everyone believes that they're going to be. Now, there's a lot of people out there, jumping ship and jumping off the bandwagon because of what they saw last week. Listen, you have every right to be pissed off. But I'll say this. Last week is not indicative of what Lane Johnson, Brandon Brooks, Jason Kelsey, Isaac Seumalo, and Jordan Mailata brings to the table. With a Jalen Hurts and a Miles Sanders and a Dallas Goedert and a Zach Ertz with that young wide receiver core. It's not indicative. So stop panicking. Stop getting upset. I'm not here, trying to sell anyone a bill of goods that, they're going to the Super Bowl. But the Philadelphia Eagles, if they can stay healthy on the offensive and defensive line, they're not going to be as bad as everyone's predicting them to be. They're just not. The Giants are better. They got questions about Daniel Jones. The Redskins defensively are superior. They might be the best defense in the NFC East. Is Ryan Fitzpatrick really taking you anywhere? Because Fitzpatrick, like Jekyll and Hyde, just at any moment, Fitztragic is just going to rear his head. And what do we say about Dallas? We know that you got all the lingering issues that's going on with Dak Prescott and his shoulder. Okay. He's one tweak away from, this being an issue the rest of the year. No one knows what their defense is going to look like. Micah Parsons is going to make them much better. They look like on paper, offensively, they should be one of the best offenses in the league. But we know that Jerry's going to figure out a way to screw it up. We can count on that. So why not the Eagles? Why not the Eagles contending for the NFC Eastern Division? Why not the Eagles, winning a greater share of their NFC Eastern games than most people are giving them credit for? And once they get past, the first 5 weeks, listen, they got the easiest schedule in the league. So if they grow, if Hurts grows and Smith grows and Rager steps into, what the team expected him to be. And, if all of these things transpire, why would this football team not be better than what all the pundits are saying? They're basing what they're saying on the product that Doug Peterson's staff put on the field. Okay. What I'm doing is I'm giving Nick Sirianni an opportunity, to show what he can do with the players that are now on this roster. And I think that's the right thing to do, from a fan's perspective. All right. Let's see. Let's get a couple more questions in here before we close out. Adam's exploits. What I don't understand is that JG, that's John Gannon, preaches ball hawking, and they aren't doing it during the games. Okay, let's be honest. They've only had 2 preseason games. You had a guy last week that caused the fumble. I think we've got 2 interceptions throughout the preseason. I'm not sure how many sacks we have. It's a process. The Eagles are one of the worst teams in takeaways last year. They were minus, I don't know what last year in comparison. When you talk about the interceptions by Wentz, the fumbles by Wentz, the interceptions and fumbles by Hurts, the Eagles were definitely minus in the minus column of the turnover ratio. But what I do know is that you got a new coaching staff, a bunch of new players on defense, behind the defensive line, and you're working this at practice all the time, and it becomes habitual, okay? And sometimes it doesn't happen, early. It doesn't happen sometimes during preseason. It might not even happen during the early part of the regular season. But if you practice it every day, if you're going after the ball every single day, sooner or later, because it becomes habit, you're going to punch some balls out. You're going to intercept some balls and take them back for touchdowns. You're going to get some strip sacks. All of these things, they begin to happen as you create the habit. And to be honest with you, they are still, in the habit creating mode. All right. So let's be a little patient. Christopher Bradley said the way the Patriots ran the ball was alarming. Yeah, it was, because they were running the ball versus our third and fourth defense. Okay. The guys that the Patriots played against, 65% of those guys won't be on the roster here in a couple of weeks. They just won't. So let's not get bent out of shape by what we saw. And to my point, let's not get bent out of shape by what we saw last Thursday. Okay. The same way you try to stay even keel based upon what you saw the Thursday before in the first half. There was a lot of excitement because of that first half against the Steelers. All of a sudden, we want to throw the baby out with the bathwater just because, they played a bad game in which 65 to 70% of the players that were on the field won't even be on the roster come the regular season. All right? Keep that in mind. Let's see. As we wind down, this will be our last question for the night. Let's look for a good one here. Not that all of them are good. And I need to start responding to some of these on Facebook and on YouTube, answering some of these questions. A lot of good questions, man. This whole thing is not quarterback. See. A lot of comments, more comments than necessarily questions. But I'm looking for one good one. You got it, Jay. Jay says Hurts' success would be a direct result of Sirianni's play calling, to a certain degree. I think that both Carson Wentz and Jalen Hurts were a victim of shoddy play calling under Doug Peterson. I also believe that they were a victim of shoddy offensive line play because you had 14 different starting combinations of offensive linemen throughout the entire season last year. No continuity, no togetherness, no familiarity. All of those things, come into play. I think, Nick Sirianni can call the best plays under the sun, but if they don't execute it out on the field, it doesn't make a difference. And it won't look like they're good calls because they're not being executed. And then we'll turn outwardly and look at Nick and say, oh, it's his fault. There's a certain amount of responsibility that's heaped upon the players' shoulders, like I talked about early, to execute what's called. Whether it's a good play that's called and you needing to execute it, or whether it's a bad play call and you having to make chicken salad out of chicken what, okay? Sometimes that's just the way it is. But I think Hurts' success is going to come from a combination of Jalen's continued growth, first of all, the offensive line play, second of all, and thirdly, Nick Sirianni calling plays that put Jalen Hurts in the best situation, in this offense, in the best situation to be successful, okay? Whatever that looks like, whether that's running the ball so that you have play action pass, so on and so forth, or whether, Jalen Hurts, the maturation process speeds up miraculously and he's reading everything that he sees. The wide receivers grow up real quick in the next 3 weeks, so that's not likely. But my point is, it's a collaborative thing. How his success will come along. It will be him doing the work. It will be the offensive line doing their job, and it'll be Nick Sirianni strategizing and scheming to put this offense in the best position that it can possibly be. All right. Well, guys, it's always a pleasure being with you. That's the show for today. I want to thank you guys for tuning in for the last 63 minutes, chatting some birds. I'll have some guests on next week as we pontificate after Friday game what the Philadelphia Eagles are going to look like rolling into the 2021 season. As always, be good to each other and take care of each other. But most importantly, make sure that you love each other. I'll see you guys right back here next week on the Seth Joyner Show. Peace.